When Roblox Rivals first launched back in June 2024, it didn't just do well, it exploded, reaching hundreds of thousands of players in just a few months. But over a year later, people are saying it's reaching the end of its life. So today I will outline everything we know and discuss whether or not Roblox Rivals is really dying. So the first thing I am going to focus on is the influence of content creators. I'm doing this because, as something of a YouTuber myself, I talk to a reasonable number of bigger creators and have a pretty good idea of what their general thoughts are. When Rivals first got popular, it was boosted by existing creators such as Tanker and Minibloxia coming over from Bed Wars, but also the emergence of new creators who quickly blew up. Think Applino, Philud, you know the ones. They were all drawn to a fresh game with so many creative opportunities. Prime Rivals was simply a breeding ground for viral videos. Not that I saw any of that action, but hey, I'm not salty, alright? I'm not salty at all. But now time has moved on. There is a sort of general consensus in the creator community that there isn't much left to do. I know this from talking to creators personally, but you can also see it for yourself. Applino and Tanker, that's two examples of creators who are pulling solid numbers every time they upload, but they simply don't due to a lack of creative opportunity in the game. Shark Tactics has recently said goodbye to Rivals for good. I know a few others who are thinking they might follow. I'm obviously not going to say who, I ain't no snake, but the point I'm trying to make is generally creators are starting to slide away from Rivals for one reason or another that we will get to. Now with good reason you might be saying,
"But Papa Dub, creators are just like a fraction of the total player base. It ain't really that bad if they leave."
But what a lot of people don't fully clock is that YouTubers are essentially free advertising for games. Why do you think creator channels are given out other than to essentially bribe people to make videos? If they play a game on camera, people watch and then they probably play for themselves. If these videos stop, people eventually stop playing for themselves. In essence, creators are a sort of representation of the wider player base. If creators start to lose interest, the average player will do as well. Now I do have to stress here, we are just at the very start of this process. Creators are only just starting to officially leave, so that does mean there is still plenty of hope for Rivals. We're going to get onto that in a little bit though. But now for the next reason that could be suffocating Rivals is the Roblox player base in general. When Rivals was at its prime, the popular games on Roblox were things like Doors, Ink Game, Dusty Strip, things like that. These were the biggest games on the site and maybe had a few 100,000 players at any given time. But it just takes a quick look at what people are playing now and, well, more importantly, how many people are playing them. A whole lot of the front page of Roblox is brain rot games, generally appealing to very young iPad kids. Now, I will be the first to admit I am probably an unk in this scenario, but play what you like, I really don't care. The point I am trying to make though is that when there are games with millions and millions of players, little old Rivals doesn't look quite so impressive anymore. Now obviously Rivals and brain rot games have very different audiences, and if you actually look at the numbers on their own, Rivals has actually benefited from all these new players. But if we're gonna pop a U-turn and just go back to those creators for a second, a game with millions of players is going to do more views than one with 100,000, so that's what people are gonna make videos on. Now for the record, I do think that this brain rot phase will collapse at some point. Everybody making videos on these games will realise at some point there's even less creativity there than there was in the old games, things like Rivals, but by then it may be too late and Rivals may already be in the ground. I don't know. But what I do know is that as we speak, a new shooter game is being made. It's called Overkill. I truly have no idea if it will compete with Rivals. I don't know anything about it, I've not played it yet, but it's a sign generally that devs are starting to smell blood in the water and thinking about taking a shot at the big dog in the world of FPS shooting on Roblox. So when Rivals first popped off, a major reason why it did so well is that all you needed to succeed in the game was skill. People have always said it's pay to win, but I find it odd how it's always the people who suck at the game who say it's pay to win. In truth, a bacon with no Robux at all could get every weapon with a bit of skill and persistence. But unfortunately the most recent update we had, the last ranked update, that actually no longer became true for the first time in Rivals history. For the record, it still isn't actually pay to win, but the only way you could have got the new distortion gun at launch was by buying the Prime Season Pass. The guns in that pass will be available for keys, but realistically, if you have to wait 3 months for a weapon, it sort of defeats the point of a new update, as by the time you can actually get them, they're no longer new. I don't actually think this is an issue, to be perfectly honest, but it is a sort of representation, a first warning sign, if you like, that if the game does actually become pay to win, I think it's likely that will spell the end, or at least spell real damage for Roblox Rivals. But on the topic of updates, I have hinted before this that Rivals is actually not finished. It's just facing a hard time. Incidentally, they faced a hard time about 4 or 5 months ago and managed to get through it pretty well. I've said the player count is actually as good as it's ever been at the minute, but if the devs really want to live to fight another day, they are going to need a few things added, or at least changing in the game. Firstly, they need to sort out the hacker problems. Now, personally, I don't really have an issue with it. I am too bad to be matched against hackers, but most YouTubers, they are very good players. They compete for the highest ranks, and that's where a lot of the content is. And I'm told it's like 50% of the games are against hackers at that level. It's understanding why it's putting people off, it's putting creators off, it's putting regular players off, and if a shooter game can't be properly competitive for the best players, then, well, they're not going to play it, they're just going to play something else. They also need to add more creative updates, in my opinion. Skins and weapons changes, they give people interest for maybe a week, and then they go back to not giving a damn, right? So people really want to see updates which bring creative content, things that you can do for weeks and weeks and not get bored. I've seen people talking about sandbox modes, you know, creating your own maps, generally things that allow people a deeper sense of immersion and customizability in the game. That way, people can play for a lot longer and still have fresh things to do. Incidentally, this would also help bringing the content back to Rivals, but I've already yapped about that, so I'm not going to continue to do so. And the last thing I have to say is actually the opposite of a change in a way. Right now, as I have mentioned, brain rot is the trend, but believe me, this will die. This will die so hard. All the games that are popular now, they will eventually fade away. That's just what happens. But if games like Rivals give in to the temptation of such massive player bases and buy into this brain rot theme, they will be brought down as well when the trend is no longer relevant. Having said this, providing the game stays true to its theme as a semi-competitive shooter, it will survive death, at least in the short term, and fortunately we haven't seen any real signs that Rivals are going to do anything silly like making a brain rot game mode. But ultimately that is the state of Rivals right now. It isn't fully dead, but based off past trends it seems to be just tipping on the edge. It's still savable, but very much not secure. Having said that, I did spend 2 weeks of my very real time uncovering Easter eggs and tiny details to reveal the official lore of Roblox Rivals. Please click that video now. Bon voyage, my old cream crackers.